Hello, folks, and welcome back. Our next demoer will be Thomas Wong. He's the Director of Business Development for Oasis. And with that, Tom, I'll pass the mic over to you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Reggie. So I'll get started. My name is Tom Wong, and I'm with 360 Factor. And today I will show everyone how our Oasis LMS can help you with some of the use cases that's typically found within a virtual conference requirement. So we'll just get started. Here we go. So as everybody on the call obviously understand, the COVID-19 sort of forced everyone to start looking at replacement of in-person conference. And the fortunate part of it is probably this move is going to be somewhat permanent in the sense that virtual component is going to be always going to be there for the future, even when we move to the in-person conference, just because some people may not feel comfortable going back to in-person. So I think some of the use cases I'm going to discuss is going to be very relevant for not just this year, but in the next few years, I would say. And also, I will try to highlight where a virtual configuration might even be superior to an in-person conference in some aspect, right? So with that said, I'm just going to highlight the 4 use cases that I will cover today, even though your use case might have more or less than what I'm going to cover. I'm just going to cover the 4 because they are most typical among all the clients that we're helping. So the first one is a poster gallery. The second one is a live education session that could potentially have multiple sessions going. There, you can also you probably have an expo hall with sponsors and banners and such, and also a networking capability where people who will otherwise connect in an in-person setting will still want a way to connect virtually. So those are the 4 areas that I want to cover. But the goals of my demo, I just want to highlight, is I'm going to go light on advice just because there's sort of a lot of advices out there. A lot of them are very relevant. So I'm going to sort of save some of the time on giving people advice on doing a virtual conference. I will try to go heavy on examples with either screenshots, and if I have time, I can also jump over to a live site. And also, I will try to provide some honest assessment of the advantage and disadvantage of a virtual event, because I think some of the things you just cannot recreate within a virtual setup, whereas some of the things a virtual configuration is actually superior. And I know that this question get asked quite a bit, so I'm just going to sort of preempt the question by mentioning that we are a technology platform and that we try to be a technology partner for your virtual conference needs. But what we are not is we're not a production company. So we typically work with the marketing team of our client to basically make things look pretty and make things look the way that they want it. So just keep that in mind. We try to stay on the technology side of it and try to make sure that we provide a platform that is reliable and flexible. So with that said, I'm just going to go directly to the first sort of the slide that I have related to our platform. So I like to start with this slide just because it sort of paints a picture of what the landing page is for your conference. And I like the fact that I'm following the previous demo because it's a very different interpretation of what a virtual conference is going to look like. So in the previous demonstration, it feels like it's a virtual reality type of thing. You walk into a help desk without the doors, right? Whereas here it's a basically, there's no hiding the fact that it is a virtual reimagination of your conference, right? So when they come here, it's not a avatar greeting you, it's a lobby page. And the way you see here is there is just a few really big, bold tiles that is greeting your attendee, right? The idea I always try to say is this is a lobby area where all the tiles are like the doors that they can walk through. So as an example, on this particular client, in the lobby area, the user just can see right away there are sort of 8 doors that they can go through. 4 of them are related to the education sessions that's going on during that particular event. There's also Expo Hall. There is an area to describe what the play to win rules are, which is their raffle system. There's also a discussion forum, and there's also a networking area. So right away, they can see the 8 tiles that they can click through. And just a few things to highlight, right? So there's a little blue area, sort of like a bulletin section. So you can change your message from hour to hour, from day to day, depending on the needs, depending on how you want to drive traffic. And also there is a little area on the right-hand side where you can put your sponsor's banner so that the attendee can click on those banners and get forwarded to either their marketing page or their landing page. So the idea here is the audience is already landed on your conference lobby area, and now it's just their decision on which door they're gonna walk through. And the first door I'm gonna walk through is actually a door that doesn't exist on this screenshot, which is a poster gallery. And this is a good segue to mention that our platform is not a one size fits all. So during the onboarding process, we'll basically work with your team to figure out how many use cases you need to cover, and we'll show you how to configure the system. So if you don't have an expo hall or you don't have a poster gallery, you're not going to have an empty tile. You're just going to have different tiles showing up on the lobby area. So here is an example of a poster gallery. So imagine someone walked through the door that says poster gallery. So in our system, all the posters in a poster gallery can be different format. So a typical example would be a lot of video-based posters. You can also have text-based posters. Typically, our client will have a few hundred. Some of them have over 1,000 posters. And when we have a lot of posters, it makes sense to have your posters categorized by topics. So the screenshot I'm showing here, it just happens to have body parts. So they even have a logo to demonstrate, which body parts you want to focus on to only show the posters within that particular topic. And on the second screenshot here, you can see if you have different keywords or different metadata and filter associated with your poster, you can definitely tag your poster so that it's easier to discover for your audience. And typically this kind of poster gallery, it's take very quickly to set up. I would say that it would take probably 30 minutes to set up the entire gallery, but then it's importing of your actual posters that's going to take a little bit of time. And typically our onboarding team will work with whoever has the data to load the data into the system. But imagine if you are a virtual conference attendee and that you like a particular poster, you can click into the poster, and here is sort of what a very simple poster will look like when the user click into it. So I'm trying to highlight, there are certain HTML based text to highlight what the research is about. For example, there are user ratings, there are bookmarks, and there are comment sections that you can enable or you can disable depending on what's your preference. But as you can see, there's a lot of interaction the user can do when they actually physically in front of, not physically, virtually in front of a poster. And this is actually one thing I think is a virtual version of the gallery is probably superior than a physical gallery, because when you have a physical gallery, typically it's sort of at the back of the conference. It's kind of a lonely place because not a lot of people actually visit. And when people do go visit there, it's not obvious what's the best way to quickly find the research topic that you are interested in. Whereas with a virtual configuration, the fact that you can easily filter, you can easily search for the topic, easily search for, say, the presenters, it just make the discovery process far, far more superior than an in-person setup. So I would say that even when we go back to normal, a virtual poster gallery is probably something you want to keep moving forward. So, and the best part of it, I think, is you also don't need to print a lot of posters out. So you also save some trees there. So, all right, so that's sort of a poster gallery. So imagine the user come out of the poster gallery and then they come back to the lobby, and then they're about to walk through the door for the education sessions. So this particular, I'm going back to the first screenshot, but it has 4 days of education sessions the user can navigate to. So imagine I just go to the first session, which happened in early June. So it has happened, this is an old screenshot. So before I actually jump into what the live sessions is going to look like, I just want to clarify some terminologies, and I'm sure this is a repeat of almost every single presentation that has been made so far. For education session during sort of virtual setup, you really have two choices. You have a pre-recorded session that you can pre-record ahead of time, and then you just live stream at a particular date and time. It's almost like a world premiere movie, right? So, so you say that it's going to premiere Monday at say 8 a.m. So on that point in time is when the video is going to start streaming for everybody. So what I always think is it's a less chaotic in the sense that you do all your homework ahead of time, you record everything ahead of time so that things just in a sort of a playlist when the actual event actually kick off. On the flip of it, you'll have sort of a live webinar, which is identical to what we are doing right now, right? So it's completely live. Any little glitch is going to show up for everybody that is watching. So, I want to say that the other platforms very stable, including Zoom, WebEx, and GoToWebinar, and we have integration with those. But then also realize that just this morning, Zoom had a little outage, right? So, technology is what technology does, right? Sometimes you do have issues when you have a pure live event. So that's why I have a little guy juggling balls, just because when you have a live webinar, you do have this sense of you got to make sure, cats are not jumping on the desk, coffee are not being spilled, and the baby are not crying in the background, right? So there's a lot of things that you have got to make sure are working out for a webinar to be truly successful. But obviously you can have a live course that have a live event that has a mixture of both some pre-recorded sessions and some live webinars. So, and that's what this screenshot is going to try to capture, is that when the user walk into education sessions, what they will see is it just happened to capture one time slot, which is the 1 hour from 8:30 to 9:30, and there's actually quite a few sessions that the user can pick and choose. So the user can pick and choose whichever session is fit their interest. And this is actually going to be, I think, part of a virtual conference that actually make it superior than the in-person setting, only in the sense that if I walk into a particular session and I realize the topic is not exactly what I'm looking for, I can hop to another session fairly easily. Whereas in an in-person conference, you sort of have to walk all the way out of the room and find another session, and hopefully the presenter doesn't get upset that someone just left his session, right? So this is what you see here is a calendar view of that all the sessions for that day. There's a lot of filters you can see that allows you to provide a quick discovery mechanism for your attendee so that they can search for the session, they can quickly go to whichever session they want. And there is also a sponsor banner on the right hand side if you choose to put it there as a way to sort of create more exposure for your sponsor across the journey of a particular attendee. So here's just an example. I just happened to change the date to this morning to give a sense of a live premiere of a particular pre-recorded session. So I took this screenshot around 9:30 in the morning, and I just happened to walk into the session slightly after. But notice that right here, there's all the information about this uh, uh, live stream, what the session is about, and any sort of the brief description are viewable here. But when the user actually navigate into it, this is what the user see, right? So they can see a live stream of the video that's recorded probably a few days ago. And what's important here is I want to stress the idea of a live stream in the sense that if you arrive before 8:30, actually 9:30, you're going to see like a wait message. And if you arrive after 9:30, you're going to miss beginning of the stream, right? So similar to you go to a movie theater and you show up a few minutes late for the movie, the projector is not going to restart the movie for you, right? So this is a very sort of try to mimic how a live course in a live event actually plays out. It's just that all the content has been pre-uploaded to the system. And the one thing I want to bring everyone's attention is, I think multiple presenters has already emphasized this point. Interaction, user interaction is definitely very important to try to recreate the experience that people enjoy at a physical event, right? So a live chat is definitely one way to create that interaction. One thing we know is that if you do have a large event that has just a lot of people chatting, things will get lost in a lot of the sort of the constant stream of chats. So what another option you have is basically have a moderated Q&A instead of a live chat, so that anyone's question bubble to the moderator, and moderator will basically approve or decline that question. Alternatively, you can also have polling in the system to sort of ask any questions to further engage your audience. So a couple of things I want to highlight just about the user interactions, because it's very important, is that when you have interactions on the platform, everything that I'm showing are built-in tools within our Oasis platform. But if you do have some sessions that is not pre-recorded, but instead is delivered as a webinar via Zoom or GoToWebinar or Cisco WebEx, if you are integrating with those platforms, then any sort of the live chat or any of the polling or Q&A will be done on those platforms, because the user will actually be sort of bounced to those platforms during that particular session. So that's just one thing to keep in mind, that there are some tools that are happening on the platform, and there's some tool that's happening remotely on your selected webinar platform. And just in contrast with some of the earlier presentations, so our platform does not have a live webinar component. It does require integration with some of the popular platforms such as Zoom and the GoToMeeting and whatnot. So it does require integration process, which is pretty typical because most of the user these days are familiar with how Zoom and other platform works. So now that I'm sort of actually, let me just go back one more time to this slide to highlight that our platform also have the capability of tracking a post-test, a evaluation, or do any accreditation that you need. So this screenshot is trying to capture the fact that when the user finish that particular session, they have the option to go to a post-test if that's required, or evaluation, and also receive any CE credit that's associated with that particular session. So in a way, you have one system that does both your live streaming and any of the evaluation and the credit claiming. So everything's sort of integrated together. And another sort of benefit of having a virtual setup like these is that if you have already uploaded all your recordings as a pre-recorded sessions, you're almost there with your on-demand product that is typically sold after the conference, right? So if you have this conference and then afterwards you want to sell some on-demand enduring product, you already have all the pieces. All you have to do is just start selling them. And also, given the fact that the video are uploaded, or you can take the Zoom recording and upload it shortly after the session ends, the user who missed any sessions can easily revisit the sessions that they have missed. So this is actually another, I would say, advantage of having a virtual conference, is that people who did ends up missing a session is not completely lost on sort of a valuable session, because they can always hop back into those sessions. So those are just some advantages I think that actually make virtual conference a little bit more flexible. Okay. And another thing that's kind of nice is the platform tracks how long the user have been engaging with the video and engaging with every aspect of the platform, so that if the user engagement metrics is important, the platform is gathering all that data for you. And if you want, you can also add a subtitle in case your audience have anyone who has a disability. You can definitely attach a subtitle or Spanish translation to your video. All right, so I'm just going to quickly jump to the Expo Hall area. So imagine now that the user, between sessions, they will step back into the lobby area, and then they can re-enter the tile for the Expo Hall. So I'm just going to pretend I'm going to go into the Expo Hall at this point. So Expo Hall, the first page the users see when they go to the Expo Hall is the screen that I'm showing you, right? It has a little sponsor banner, which could be just be a collage of all the logos of your sponsor. And then they're going to have sort of a tile of all the exhibitors that you have. So I would say that this is analogous to your in-person expo hall. When you do walk into that conference, you will see like a map of all the exhibitors that is there for the event, and then your attendee can sort of figure out exactly who they want to visit, right? They can also search, they can also use filter to find the particular service provider that they're interested in. So this is just an example of an expo hall, and if you have different tiers of exhibitors and you want to have different layout, there's different ways to configure the system to have a little bit differentiation between different exhibitors. But now let's say the user, the attendee is excited about some of the exhibitors. They can basically click on their logo and directly enter into the exhibitor booth that has been set up for that exhibitor. So here's just a couple examples of exhibitor booth that is virtual. So obviously, this I would say is one of the biggest drawback of a virtual conference versus a physical one, just because once your attendee is physically at the exhibitor booth, nobody is there warmly shaking their hand and making a conversation, right? So it's sort of it requires your attendee to actually pay attention to what is in the exhibitor booth, but um, but functionally, your exhibitor can upload all the marketing collateral that they have. So here's just some examples of maybe a video to highlight what they have, some PowerPoint, some PDF, or some links to different registrations or different raffles. I know that some of our clients have sponsors who have a form that will take the user to Grubhub gift card, so that they can fill out the form and receive lunch paid for by the sponsors and the exhibitors. So here's just a few examples of how a virtual exhibitor booth will look like virtually, right? And I'm just going to click on next. So this is the bottom part of the screenshot, and this screenshot just highlight the fact that you can have a sort of a raffle system. This particular client happened to call it play to win, and the idea here is you can sort of create some additional engagement with your audience by giving them a raffle prize. But in order to get a raffle prize, there are different rules that they have to meet, such as visiting the exhibitor booth and have to interact with some of the marketing collateral that the exhibitor has uploaded, right? So if the exhibitor upload, say, a few videos, they can set a rule to say you gotta watch all the videos before you can enter the raffle based on the booth. So that's one thing that's possible. And also there's a contact us form at the bottom of the page that allows the attendee to basically sort of reach out for additional information, so that it's a very quick back and forth if the exhibitor is trying to collect more leads directly on from your conference. It's literally just a one button click for your attendee to express interest for your exhibitor and for them to receive the information from the system about who that particular person is. So that's sort of a exhibitor setup, a booth. And what I'll go next is the networking piece. So imagine now the user take a step back, went back to the lobby area, and then the next part that he's interested in is the networking section. So in the networking section, so we use sort of you have to opt in order to network with other people and in order for people to network with you. So in this case, it's important to know that um, you have to make yourself networkable in order for other people to network with you and for you to see their information. So the networking profile is pretty flexible, but in this screenshot, the user had to put in their title, who they work for, where they're from, and the little profile, including a little picture. So, and if you don't fill this out, you're not going to be able to actually network with anyone else on the system. And here's just a fictitious example of if I have opt-in. Here's just some funny celebrities and what the networking experience is going to look like if I have opt-in to their networking. So I try to be conscious of time. So that will be end of my presentation. And so if you are interested, please definitely reach out. I have my contact here. We have our website, are also on the last slide. We also have expo.oasislms.com, which is like a demo site where and you can log in and you can sort of pretend that you're visiting a live show and then see how it's working out. So with that said, I'm open for any questions that anyone have.
So Thomas, thank you for that. Very, very efficient going through that demo, my friend. So I had a question for you.
Sure.
And everybody's kind of struggling right now with availability.
Sure.
You know, what's your guys' capacity right now for doing meetings over the next 3 months, say?
Okay, so we are definitely taking new clients who are interested. And the reason that we have a little bit more bandwidth than some of the other platforms is simply because we don't do everything for our client. We work with our client, and we are a technology platform. And typically, we set things up and we train your team, but our clients team is the one that actually do all the heavy lifting of setting things up. So we typically don't do a lot of the heavy production for our client. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. The other question I have for you is, and I should have asked some of the other presenters this as well, how accessible is the platform on a mobile device?
So it's definitely mobile friendly. And so that if they do use a mobile phone, they will be able to see things that is basically shrink to the size of the mobile phone. So yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another question that's come up a couple of times, I've seen it in the chat area, but more and more folks are becoming concerned about it, is, you know, some of the platforms have the ability to capture the chat areas, things like that. And
Sure.
one question that I've had pointed to me recently was how GDPR compliant is that,
Sure.
and what are the privacy things you think come into play here?
Okay, so the chat is definitely captured and saved and can be used as a way to sort of do follow-up with your attendees. And it is tracked by who said what, but it's available also for the administrator to go in there and to clear the chat if there's any sort of a regulatory requirement on how long you can keep the chat for. So we leave it up to the administrator to decide, you know, whether they want to archive the chat or they want to clear the chat. But by default, the chat is saved because typically our client need the chat history to follow up, right? In case someone says, hey, can you get back to me on whatever piece of information that you have? So the chat is important to be saved. So
Got it.
yeah.
Got it. Well, we're right on the minute, sir. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Sure.
And if folks have any further questions for Thomas, you see his contact information there on the screen. And with that, I'll thank you one final time, sir, and see you in a little bit, okay?
Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you.